The Square Ball Podcast.
It's the weekly show number 253, Heroes and Villains for you now, then brought to you by Levi Solicitors, levisolicitors.co.uk/the Square Ball for 10% off your legal fees. Dan, Michael, Moscow White's here as well. Let's do Heroes and Villains then, part 3 of the show. Ken Bates Villain of the Week award is first. We mentioned him in part 1 of the show, destroyed Raphinha's face, that Burnley thug, Nicolas Otamendi.
I'm so confused.
He doesn't play for Burnley, does he?
He might.
He might. Maybe he was playing.
That was his audition.
He was playing for the move, wasn't he, in that game?
He hurt Raphinha's face, and he used his poison elbow, as we established, to pollute Raphinha's
ABC once sang.
Bloodstream.
Shoot that poisoned elbow through my heart.
Anyway, he made Raphinha sick, and Raphinha therefore missed Spurs, and we didn't win at Spurs.
We could blame Scum and Liverpool players as well, and Man City players for him being sick, because he was stuck on a private jet with them, wasn't he? So
I heard him. Yeah, he fell asleep, and they were pouring stuff. Which James Bond film is it? It's one of the Connery ones, isn't it? A bit racist, I think, where he's in Japan and someone's in the ceiling and dripping poison down a little cotton thread into his mouth, and he just manages to escape it, but the Bond girl dies.
Yeah.
I think that's what they were doing. It's quite a very convoluted way to arrive at the point I was trying to make, but it's just what popped into my head.
This is that the whole downside of him being good for Brazil is now the other teams want to stop him. The game before the whole elbow business against Colombia, the guy, I can't remember his name, but the Colombian fullback who we made a fool of in the first match when he came to worldwide prominence for being brilliant, stamped on his Achilles and got a yellow card for it midway through the first half.
And he had a blade. He had a blade in his shoe. That's also a James Bond trick.
So there's a lot going on out there where it's like, oh, now everybody knows he's good. Now everybody is going to try and snap his legs every time he plays for Brazil, and we don't need that unless. I mean, it's always the thing is that, a long-term injury can prevent a move, a transfer, perhaps. But it also means that they can't play for us at the same time, so that wouldn't do us any good.
Question:
Leave him alone. Stop hurting him.
We've touched many times on this show on the lack of research that goes into it, but they've got more international games, haven't they, Brazil? Like the European international windows have all been closed off now until February, March, whatever it is. But he may be off again at some point in the next couple of months. Is that right? Don't know. Can we find out?
Yeah, I believe they've still got a round of matches.
That's bullshit.
When the Ecuador manager will throw a bowler hat at him, I believe.
And you need to check the rim of that. Dangerous. Metal. Just check your rim. Jody Morris has been...
Speaking of dangerous.
And rims.
Yeah. Jody Morris has got a nomination for... he brought up Spygate, didn't he, on Jimmy Bullard's podcast. Made a fool of himself, goddammit.
It's a right idiotic retelling of it as well, because so much of it is from the perspective of not being there. Like he describes Bielsa phoning up Lampard to explain it all and starts saying, obviously I wasn't there. He was talking to Frank, so I don't know what he was saying, and he even uses the word, but I imagine he was telling Frank. So I'm like, you got no idea what was going on. He brings up bolt cutters and all that kind of nonsense. It sounds like an absolute farce. But the bit that really showed him up is when they start talking about Bielsa's presentation. And he says, we then see he did a presentation with the press and starts talking about stuff that every team does it. There's a lot about the details, but he was just showing that they watched videos of the other team. Some of the hours he claimed he spent watching the videos of the other teams.
Chris Wilder.
We then processed it, and we said there's not enough hours in the day.
Mary Poppins.
He has assistants, Jody.
He has a team of acolytes around the world who do video analysis for him, as well as the data analysis team at Leeds.
He's pulling this out like it's some kind of gotcha. Nah, you say you're watching all them games, getting enough hours in the day, mate. People watch them report to him.
Do you have a data analysis team? Yes.
And that's it. He's saying, it's all this stuff that everybody does. But Bielsa's worked out a way that he can consume all the games and all the information he needs to, despite there not being enough hours in the day to do it. Whereas Jody is saying it's impossible. So there is something that Bielsa does that Jody Morris and Frank Lampard do not. Every team does it.
Is it having friends?
Well, I mean,
that do things for him. I think that's what.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's
I will say
part
just the whole Spygate thing, the way he retells it, so with the bolt cutters and all that. It's become like the pub bore anecdote, hasn't it? Him and Lampard.
You'll never get it. Police were in the bushes. Have I told you?
They had machine guns, and we took them down.
They came over. Here we found his kids. And it was really embellished as well. There was all sorts of stuff about we were just having training, and somebody says it's police. I have no idea what's going on, but
we have to put subtitles on this video. Aren't
that
we?
part of it of just thinking that he's done something special by catching Bielsa out. You see, got him.
We
it just proves that they can't think.
He's been spiky today. I've enjoyed Moscow today. He's been very spiky.
This is the point where we have to bring up that Jody Morris is legally banned from speaking about what happened during his time at Leeds. Remember, the Independent did a profile on him.
Wouldn't it be better if he was just legally banned from speaking?
They did a big interview with him of all about his career, and then they just got to that point and said, Jody moved to Leeds in 2004. Leeds United were relegated, unfortunately, where Jody Morris signed a legal agreement agreeing never to discuss what went on at Leeds United.
Does that stop us doing it? Because we know what went on, don't we?
Well, we know what was...
Should we break that injunction?
Oh.
I mean, we didn't sign anything.
No, I mean, what could possibly go wrong with that?
Well,
LeviSolicitors.co.uk/.
The thing was that from a legal basis, he was cleared of the things that were alleged against him.
Mm-hmm.
He was accused of a sexual assault while he was at Leeds, was cleared of that, but then left anyway. So the full story of what went on behind the scenes to cause him to leave and not be able to discuss any of it, actually trying to tie all those things together is still...
will forever remain a mystery.
Still for Jody to discuss. He doesn't seem to have a problem.
Don't think he's
talking.
He's not allowed to, though, is he?
Just only when it comes to that. So
anyway,
what an absolute stain on our football club that horrible little bastard was. And come in, and that people. If we get relegated this season, right, it won't be good, but at least we'll do it with some self-respect. And to borrow Johnny United, some dignity, we'll be fine because we'll have. Whatever you think about,
will we smash up a new stadium in Brentford?
Well, that's us. That's fans I'm talking about. But what we'll be relegated for will be sticking to some principles about the squad and the style of play
and the points deduction from burning Brentford's new stadium.
But it will be a principled way of going down and finding out that Bielsa's style of play over the course of the season and his principle about the small squad didn't work out, and we lost it that way. 2004, when we got relegated, because Jody Morris has come in and he's wearing the number 4 shirt, and Peter Reid thinks he can be the new Billy Bremner just because he's put 4 on his back, and then he snapped somebody in his in pre-season at Burnley, started
You're not a fan?
Fight there, and then has to go halfway. We're only 3 months into the season when he's being arrested, and then that's dragging our club's name through the mud with this Chelsea little idiot.
Anyway,
did you know that in 2006, Morris drove down a one-way street the wrong way while 3 times over the drink drive limit?
I didn't know that.
That wasn't good either, was it?
Was he part of the airport group, the 9/11 gang? Or was
I don't know if he'd already been. I don't know if he'd already been sacked off for being shit.
He missed that party. Well, no, because he came to us from Chelsea, didn't he? So he's still there.
Probably helpful not to speculate. And we'll find out.
If
he wasn't there, he wishes he was.
Let's put it this way: his mates were.
Right.
We know that much because Frank Lampard, that paragon of virtue, was part of that as well. And then for them to be
still going,
for him to be on the touchline, and he was in the running for being manager at Cardiff, and they gave it to that other absolute
Leeds United legend
joke. But imagine anybody thinking, "I want Jody Morris in charge." There should be. At what point?
Jody Morris was there.
Right, there you go.
Good. Can we move on from Jody Morris and talk about...
I didn't expect... Why are we talking about him in the first... Oh,
because he was nominated.
Because he's been talking about us.
Of course.
Because he reckons he's outsmarted Bielsa because he knows how many hours there are.
Well, you could argue somebody who did...
how many he's spent in a pub.
Somebody who did outsmart Bielsa, Conte, at the weekend. Number of nominations from our TSB Plus subscribers. We give them the opportunity to tell us who they want to nominate as heroes and villains. Kevin, Aidan and Kit all nominated Conte. A word like arsehole, wankers, shite being bandied around Conte.
And his eyes are unsettlingly blue as Kevin points out, which is almost, there's a little bit of Mills and Boone thrown in amongst the
His
swearing.
unsettling blue eyes bore down over
as he gripped Ryan Mason and held his to his heaving bosom.
while an Argentinian beauty looked on, etc. Right, Conte extended into Spurs fans as well. Zach, Sai, Pecan, Andrew all mentioning Conte in the context of the crowd geeing up.
Yes. Why is he having to do it?
Yeah.
Essentially, you get a massive stadium with the big end. It's got the big end, hasn't it? A single tier cop. Should be a great atmosphere in there. No one asked.
No. Well, Cy Taylor did say about the Spurs fans, he said booing their own team rather than getting behind them in the first half to singing shit songs smugly in the second as they unloaded £100 million worth of subs in the second. Twats.
Yeah, it's true. But the point about Conte being made as well, you know, he's this is Kevin saying it, a shite win over a 17th place side is all he's managed. When he was enjoying it too much. He should have looked sad about it.
Right, then go and get it out of the way. I've been nominated by Jez. Jez is wrong.
You're not playing devil's advocate.
This is about my performance on
You're
the match
starting
ball.
to seriously criticise Bielsa.
Is Bielsa beyond criticism? Because we'll come on to the nominations for Bielsa in the next couple of nominations.
Jody Morris doesn't think so. So,
So more than a Morris.
and Jez is suggesting the way I leapt on the biased reporting of Calvin Phillips' comments and didn't want to know about the more in-depth reporting of what went on suggested that I'm a quisling and not you, Moscow. After all,
it's a little bit of a sustained attack.
Gone in both feet there. I've actually gone back and listened to what I said closing out the podcast, and I reiterate that I said, well, let's find out what's been said and if there is anything in the Calvin comments. But no, Jez probably didn't make it that far because he's got no attention span. So off you go, Jez. Off you trot.
You probably turned off when you were asking us about things that we'd not seen or heard. It was a difficult conversation.
That is the fun thing about this show: lack of research, lack of knowledge. That's what we're here for.
And other people are firing into Bielsa as well.
Yeah, I would say Jack, who questions Marcelo Bielsa, so does Lawney as well. So I think I'm legitimately positioned to say, are there questions to be asked? Because I was just posing the question because I do have doubts about the paper-thin squad, but, forgive me.
Nobody's talking about that, though. They're talking about what the changes were.
Well, but that's, for me, as we were talking about on the match ball, it's about the paper-thin squad because, didn't work, did it? The subs and that.
Yeah, the changes didn't really work. People saying he didn't need to make them, but maybe he did.
Yeah.
He sort of knows. If just because it didn't work doesn't necessarily mean it was the wrong decision to do it. It might have just not worked on that occasion.
And it's also fine to ask the question,
You can see sometimes if you take the translation off of Bielsa and kind of distill it down to what Sam Allardyce would be saying in this situation, it's not always that different because the explanation he gave after the Tottenham game was, I saw the problem, I made this change and this change and this change and this change, and I wasn't able to solve the problem. And then there is that kind of the reluctance to then go the next step and say, so why did you make all those changes then? Because that's the part he's not talking about. So I made this change and it didn't work. So, well, why didn't it work? Not bad. So there is sometimes it's a viable question to ask, but then I think that's where Bielsa, being the fair-minded chap he is, will introduce the concept of the other team, and his way of looking at it is every change I could think of to make, Tottenham were just better than it, and that's where it comes about. And so then you start to think, well, what is there to criticise in that if somebody has done everything they can possibly think of to stop Tottenham from doing what they were doing and winning the game, and it didn't work? Do you then say, well, this manager is not good enough, or is it just that what Spurs were doing was too good? And it's interesting rather than condemning to kind of consider some of those things.
But let's condemn some other people instead.
But he should have just sorted it out.
Let's get through the Spurs ones then, because we've got Reguilon, your mate Reguilon, Moscow, Kane.
Warren G wrote a song about him.
Who else we got? That's most of the Spurs ones, actually, I think. Reguilon.
Yeah, Kane got some criticism, Roger pointing out that he was just whining and complaining all game, and you do have that kind of England hero privilege that you get to do that at referees, but Calvin doesn't.
On first name terms, I bet, as well.
Yeah.
Harry, no, it's fine, Harry. I'll sort it out. Don't worry, Harry.
He did seem to be in the ref's face an awful lot. Is he Spurs captain?
Of course, he's Spurs captain.
He probably is, isn't he?
But it was
Well,
every little touch of the ankles or anything that involves contact. You know how he likes to leap in the air, clutching his ankles. He'll leap in the air with both feet, will Kane, won't he? Like a little froggy rabbit thing. And he'll hold an ankle, and he does that, and then he'll get up and start moaning about it to the ref.
Do you think he's going to last at Spurs? Because he's 29 in July coming up, and the way Conte with his fitness business and no mayonnaise and all that kind of stuff, and you saw the way. I mean, he didn't really run during the game, and yet in the last 10 minutes could hardly walk. Guy's not fit. He's got he's giving me strong Rooney vibes about the way that his post-30 career is going, and players like James Milner should be an example to us all that age is not a barrier to achievement. I don't particularly care for him, but Zlatan Ibrahimovic playing in Serie A at 40, it's not impossible if you look after yourself and you're in great shape. I just don't see that happening with Harry Kane, and it seems like a move to a club where he can just trundle around and eat what he wants.
Leyton Orient. I told you before, it will be Leyton Orient.
Would be a better solution.
But it's true, but there's politics at play, though, isn't there? Because Levy has obviously forced him to stay effectively and said, no, you will stick to your contract. You're not going to Man City. So he's now in it for the long haul. He's going to take him past 30, is that contract, isn't it? Or thereabouts. So I guess there is the pressure then, having made that decision at boardroom level, that Conte has to accommodate him one way or another, regardless of how much he plods around and whether he can get up to fitness or not.
And is Kane now just sulking as well? Anyway, and again, that's an example where Milner didn't always get the moves he wanted. I don't think he wanted to leave Man City and go to Liverpool, but instead of sulking, he just became one of Liverpool's greatest ever players, in my view, and won everything with them, and is still a magnificent human. So glad Harry Kane is their problem, not Leeds United's, and we're fine with Bamford and Tyler Roberts.
We had nominations from DJ Slippers and Duke Goolies, who nominated Martin Tyler and Alan Smith, the Sky commentary combo, for their commentary on the game. But this is the problem with the Premier League, all of it, as we realised from the whole Karen Carney incident and all the punditry and all the commentary. It's all done in that sort of general overarching themes kind of way, isn't it? Everything's distilled down into themes and narrative rather than genuine analysis.
I mean, Martin Tyler, bless him, he's been a good commentator over the years, but I am starting to have some doubts. Moscow was saying about how much longer Harry Kane can go on at the top of his game. I do think Martin Tyler's now a bit beyond that.
The whole man of the match thing, so Reguilon is nominated as well for winning man of the match and for scoring. But the first half, the whole spirit of our first half defensive performance was how we overloaded the right-hand side to push him back so he couldn't play. He got in once, but we had Llorente going over there, Stuart Dallas was right midfield, and then Daniel James is right wing. So you got the three of them on that side, which probably gives Jackie Harrison even more praise because Stroik wasn't really playing as a traditional left back. So we did the thing from the Championship of just saying, right, Jackie, from that corner flag to that corner flag down that side, that's all yours, and that was fine. And that was part of how we were so good in the first half, is we did not give their wing backs any opportunity to get into the game, and we scored. So let's give their wing back man of the match because he got a fluky deflection off a post and put it in, and we can't analyse this game with any more depth or intelligence than just go, man of the match, well, who scored it?
It's very Garth Crooks' team of the week, isn't it? Where his defence is just made up of defenders who scored that week, and he's going, oh, well, them, because they all scored, so you get 4 goals from defence alone.
I'm going to chuck Robbie Keane in here as well. And it's kind of related to what
I didn't see this. What happened?
You were saying, well, it's not major. It's not like something that happened, but he was one of the drivers of the Calvin Phillips interview thing. 'Cause he's saying, looking at that interview, I think there's things he wants to say, but he's not saying, and there's probably something more behind that. And you've got to remember, Robbie Keane doesn't watch Leeds every week. And
his boyhood club.
He's got so many boyhood clubs. His attention is divided. I don't think he knows a right lot.
He's got more boyhood clubs than a child golfer.
Calvin Phillips is like, and you compare that to Lucy Ward tweeted about that interview and said it was an emoji with little hearts on the face. She said, "Oh, it's so happy to see Calvin Phillips is still the same lovable lad he was when he was a teenager at Leeds, and that he hasn't changed." And so somebody who knows him very well and has known him for years watched that interview and just saw the same pure, beautiful person that they always did. Robbie Keane, who knows next to fuck all about anything to do with the situation, is on Sky going, oh, well, there's clearly something in that and something there. And that's what then drives people getting worried about why Calvin Phillips was careful in his words when he's dealing with. And so Jeff Sharif's going to be nominated as well for his passive-aggressive.
Back to
Sorry,
Sean Connery.
I was talking about Sean Connery.
I had breakfast with Jodie Morris this morning. Passive-aggressive interview style that kicked it all off. None of them know what they're talking about.
Right,
they're all idiots.
Let's wrap up.
Steve Nicol is worth 10 of them all.
Let's wrap up the villain side of things, because we've got a number of nominations for sort of more tangential stuff, such as Ding, bless him, big ambitions, wants to overthrow capitalism for the crap shortcomings of football. So good luck with that, Ding. We've got Ralph mentioning FIFA, blaming the injuries on FIFA. I think it's Jonathan mentions Jurgen Klopp for refereeing from the touchline again, the little spat with Arteta. Did you see that?
Yes, he was moaning about Arteta because he thought Arteta was trying to get one of his players booked. Would you believe it? Would you believe it?
Some of that interview with Klopp about that was absolute prime hypocrisy when you go through the Harvey Elliott, Pascal Stroik.
Jonathan does say maybe he was trying to tell Mikel you have to go on the pitch and have a 5-minute conversation with the ref if you want to influence the game.
And Luck/Fate gets a number of nominations from Chris, Wisconsin Todd, Toby, Darren, all nominating the cruel hand of fate.
We had to work hard for our goal. I think it was worth twice, both of theirs. So that's a 4-0 win to Leeds.
Right, pick a Ken Bates villain of the week. No, it's not going to be me. Bielsa?
I think. I mean, Jody Morris.
No,
he's not done anything.
Let's not validate him.
He's irrelevant.
He's done worse things in the past.
He's not even worth speaking.
It's Conte, isn't it? Surely.
I'm happy to give it to Conte with his gorgeous, unsettling blue eyes.
Yeah.
His good hair transplant as well.
Yeah.
I hope that fails.
He's done well for himself generally, hasn't he? He's aged quite well with some assistance.
He knows it though, doesn't he? Prick.
And that whole thing with the crowd. Stop that.
We'll love it when he's doing it at Elland Road for us.
So he's our Ken Bates villain of the week. On to the Gaetano Berardi hero of the week then, please. Let's do some nominations.
Calvin gets a few. Some for his performance and some just for twatting a referee.
Yeah. I mean, that was one of the high points of the game, wasn't it?
Yeah. And we also do need to mention the job he did on Harry Kane. It was weird because I thought he was brilliant at doing that, and then he went into midfield and looked like a defender who'd been put in midfield. It was strange. He was he flipped it all on its head, what he normally does. Even though we've seen him play at the back before, and we know he's good doing it, it's quite different doing that in the Championship and doing it against, allegedly the best striker in the Premier League. So
Andy spoke truth to power in his interview after the game, didn't he?
Slagged off his boss.
Yep.
That's what we want to hear.
Bringing down the system.
The other thing about that was a lot of people picked up on him saying we needed better game management. You can pick up, Liam Cooper has said that, Stuart Dallas has said that. I think it's probably a symptom of our season. I think it's more unusual that a Leeds player interviewed after one of our games this season is not saying we could have done better with the game management. So I think too much got read into that as well, and Calvin was heroic in word and deed, as was Adam Forshaw, who may have been part of the problem when Phillips moved into midfield in the second half, was that we didn't still have the first half's Forshaw helping him. We only had the second half's Click, who, whatever. I love Match's Click.
Jez, Duke, Ghoulies and Roger were the nominations for Forshaw. Roger says, can't remember now who said it, but he's like a new signing. Yes.
We would be hugely excited by him if we had paid 25 million quid. We'd be going, oh yeah, looks like a decent bit of business. He's very, very tidy. And
I won't want to give Middlesbrough 25 million quid.
Makes us very stable.
Isn't it more exciting though that we paid 4.5 million for him or 3.5 million for him, and after so long out and this terrible journey that he's been on and horrible pain that he's been through, he's returned and is looking better than I ever imagined he could. That's more exciting. What a great story. And if he can, I don't know what the second half substitution with him was, because it was an hour, and whether it was that we're still protecting how much of a game he can play, and when it started getting very intense in midfield and he'd played an hour, that's one of the reasons why I had to go off, because he's not up to full fitness yet. But if he can keep that standard up and keep his fitness together, he could be brilliant for the rest of this season and possibly beyond. And I'm glad he is as good as he is. Not for any kind of proof of anything, just to see a player that good playing that well.
Speaking of good players, Archie Gray gets a couple of nominations from Zach and Darren.
Just keep Forshaw going until Gray's ready.
Not to pile too much on Archie Gray's tender young shoulders, but he has been future nominated by Zach for being our Premier League Player of the Season. Sorry, beg your pardon. Being our Player of the Season and firing us to promotion to the Premier League in the 28-29 season after 6 years in the wilderness. I will say about Archie Gray, it's dead funny. First of all, he's mocking you, Michael, isn't he, by sporting that hair? What's your thoughts on that? That's a taunt, isn't it?
He's a young scamp. I'll let him get away with it.
Would you ruffle his hair if you met him?
I mean, I actually am old enough to be his dad.
Yeah.
That's probably the first time that's happened, realistically. I know there are physical possibilities of me, having
knocking up the girls of Pontefract when you were 16.
Well, exactly, but
yeah.
I mean, Archie Gray, it was kind of an achievable thing to be his dad. Although, I mean, his actual dad is
he'll knock you out if you keep going on this line.
I was going to say his actual dad, I think, has probably given him better genes than I could have done for being a footballer.
Yeah, I mean, God, if he's no, let's not get there.
Somebody tweeted before the game, didn't they, that if he made his debut, he'd be the first Premier League footballer born after
Come Dine with me. Yeah. Is it Rich Jolly who does all the funny tweets?
That sounds about right. Not just funny, but exquisitely researched. That was great. And when we're talking about age, he's nearly 4 years younger than Gelhardt. 4 years. Like you tend to put these back into a school context. So Gelhardt would be leaving school when
he'll have just left sixth form. He'll be going on to college now, won't he?
When Gray's on, I don't know when people go to school now.
Well, Archie 12. It'd be in year 11, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
Archie Gray, that's the point. Well, this is the funny thing, right? Because my son is going tomorrow on a trip to London with primary school.
No fields there.
And he's
sewers.
Well, he's 10 and he's going to be having a nice big day out in London. They're going to go to the Harry Potter thing on the way back up, like around Hertfordshire, wherever that is, and they're going to go to the Natural History Museum and eat the sandwiches and do all that sort of fun stuff. He's 10. Archie Gray's only 5 years older than him, and he's had a nice day trip to London, hasn't he? Gone to Spurs' stadium though. It's just mental, isn't it, when you think about it? Here's a year 11 pupil who's gone to a Premier League game.
What's the legality? Did they overcome this? But isn't there a question mark? Because players in the under-18s, I guess he wears it for the under-23s, but he can't wear betting advertisements because he's not old enough to bet.
No.
And did they come to some kind of conclusion it's okay? Because I think when he plays for the under-23s, he's not wearing a special shirt. He's just wearing a shirt.
Yeah.
With that was where my speech like with SBO top. Although nobody can bet with him anyway, so he's probably absolutely fine.
It's not a gambling company in this country. Anyway, who cares?
Knows what it is. The other thing about, you started by talking about the pressure on him and the idea that he'll, play of the season 28-29. It is the patience there is going to have to be. That's why I was working out the age gap to Gelhardt, because Gelhardt has just made his debut, and that's sensible for a 19-year-old to be making his debut. That's 4 years away for Archie Gray, and we really need to resist the whole kind of Freddie Adu situation where it's like, well, he went to Spurs 2 seasons ago, and has he progressed? No, he's still only 16. He's started shaving. That's progression. So there does need to be maybe cooling it a little bit with Archie Gray, but the way he has, he has been kind of trailed around Thorpe Arch for a while. Everyone's saying he's coming through and looks like he's going to be good, but I don't know if it was necessarily expected he would be bossing the under-23s almost on the bench for the first team in the Premier League.
Ridiculous.
Good by this point. So there's 2 ways of doing it, I guess. One is either relax, let him grow up, don't put any pressure on him. If it's 4 years before he's in the team, just deal with that, don't write him off. The other way is just stick him in now.
I want him to play against Brighton and Palace. Let's break his young body.
Rest of the season, if the midfield for the rest of the season,
never mind Lewis Bay,
is Archie Gray and Adam Forshaw, what an incredible world we will be.
That's a great buddy
entering
movie.
into.
Great buddy movie, isn't it? That one. Right, Harrison and James got loads of nominations by weight of numbers anyway. Gary Phillips.
I feel a bit
Jack,
bad that they were lumped together so frequently, actually. But absolutely loads of people nominated him as a pair.
Well, I think for this goal, though, in particular, I think they've got to be front runners in this Hero Award this week because they combine brilliantly, the pair of them, the run and obviously Jackie's initial run to beat your mate. What's his name, Moscow?
Eric Dyer,
the right back.
They
Emerson Royale.
They were both great for this goal, and they both played really well in the rest of the game. James was dangerous. When I watched the game back, it's not that he was like dominating the match or anything, but he kept having shots, and he kept being a worry to them, and that's good.
Chocolate Biscuit, specific nomination for that. Dan James for lots of kicking at the goal, including kicking it into the goal where the keeper wasn't and scoring.
Yeah, Chuck's got it. And then Jackie, that's his first assist of the season, and I would wager that Raphinha, I don't know where natural talent comes into all this kind of thing. Jackie works his arse off. Also, he was on his Instagram story the other week, I think it was the start of the international break, just working out at home, but absolutely exhausting himself and dropping to the floor, and almost to the point that you would just chill out. But the effort he puts into being better deserves the reward of an assist as minimum. But even, I think most people have recognised that even when he's not been playing very well so far this season, it's not been for want of trying.
And we've got nominations for Llorente and Strauch as well, for both excelling out of position. Sai saying he's quietly becoming the best defender in our team is Pascal Strauch, and performances go under the radar a little bit. Yeah, I would agree with that, but ultimately we did lose, didn't we? So I'm not sure they're going to necessarily win it this time. And Dom is basically a capitalist pig and is embracing the £1 billion stadium and all its luxury trappings because he wants to nominate the Spurs catering.
Yeah, the butter chicken and spinach pie and the Beavertown neck oil at the ground. Best food and drink I've had at the football.
I will say, me and my mate went out for beers in Newcastle during the international break, and he did have a Beaverton neck oil. So
Beaverton?
Beavertown.
Is it not Beaverton?
No, I mean, don't. It may one day, once these beavers have established their dwelling place over many years, it might become like Cheltenham.
Beavertown.
Be more of a Beaverton. But at the moment, it is certainly a beaver town.
Yeah,
it's got it's very sustainable because the hydroelectric power is very advanced.
Great,
excellent. See, I'm already concerned.
It's a joke about building dams.
Yeah, and again, you're having to explain the joke. I know.
I don't think he's got it.
I'm mainly just concerned about how much that would have cost.
The Beaverton and
the pie.
I will back in a supermarket.
It's going to be at least. You can't take it into the Spurs ground though.
Well,
just like going in there to the catering staff. I don't know why you're selling that.
Me and my mate,
£8 a pint.
Just bag of cans on the.
Me and my mate went for a burger and his Beavertown beer. I think it was like a £5 and it was a small can, and that was just like in a burger place. So it's going to in at your Spurs premium, and they've got £1 billion stadium to pay. We've seen the financial results: 700 million quid in debt. It's going to be about £700 million, that can there, isn't it?
There's a can of the Square Ball beer as brewed by the North Brewing Company. It's excellent value at whatever the price. You get a big can as well. It's not a little Coke can.
You get more in it. One. More in it.
So it's
bigger can, more in it.
Yeah. So
as the famous phrase goes, big can.
So keep buying that this Christmas.
A bit more in it. It's in Morrison's, isn't it?
I think so. It's still there.
Anyway,
so get a bag of cans of our beer, take it down to Welland Road, and
are you saying sneak it in?
No, be proud.
Just drink it outside in the street. Okay.
No, just march in. So I'm bringing these in. Try and stop me.
They will.
I mean, they will stop you, and you will also potentially receive a stadium ban. So don't do that.
We're going to get relegated anyway, so they'd be doing you a favour banning you from that hellhole. At least you can sit at home and drink.
Do it at the end of the season, and then when people accuse you of being a part-time bastard and not going anymore now we're in the Championship, you can go, I'm banned.
Yeah.
And then people will think you're like really edgy.
Yeah, exactly.
What did you get banned for?
A preemptive strike that makes you look cool. So yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, fair enough. I think that wraps up all the nominations. Are we going to give it to Harrison and James? I want to put them forward as the leading candidates this week.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Jackie Dennison.
Yeah. Is it like a celebrity couple kind of?
Yeah, I think that works. Jameson is back to booze, so we can't call them that.
All right, okay. Harrison and James, well done. So that wraps it up then. We'll be back.
Well, we don't know, do we?
Bloody week. Crystal bloody Palace in the Premier League. Should we change the villain nomination and give it to the Premier League for doing this, inflicting this shit on us? What Amazon Prime as well? Shouldn't they be busy delivering Christmas presents at this time of year? Black Friday sales and all that.
They definitely cannot do both.
No, they need to stop it. Right, that wraps up the show for this week then. Please do check out thesquareball.net/plus if you want to get TSB Plus. Get your discounts on the merch, which is on sale at the minute. Get your orders in now before Christmas, particularly if you're abroad, because God knows what happens when the parcels go offshore. They get tracked, but, you know.
Yeah, sorry about all the postage costs and that. It's all gone a bit Brexity, I think.
If you want to actually receive it, you have to pay a fortune.
Yeah, nothing gets delivered. It seems to be the new policy for sending things out of Britain unless you pay loads.
But the most important thing to take away from this is it's not our fault.
Oh, absolutely.
We get absolutely nothing out of overcharging people for postage. It's just not anything that we can control or benefit from. So it just straight up sucks. But
right.
You do get a nice scarf.
You do, and it is a very nice scarf indeed. And we will catch you next week at some point. Some tired faces maybe next week on Wednesday.
With 6 points in our back pockets.
Yeah, brilliant. We'll speak to you then.
Conor Gallagher in the other one.
The Square Ball Podcast.